Okay, today we are going to be learning how to make use of local storage in your Blazor web applications. Local storage is a storage mechanism available in your web browsers. It's in the form of key value structure, and your web applications can use this to store static and non-sensitive data. Now I say non-sensitive because it could be prone to security threat and you don't want to give away credentials, sensitive information such as credentials so easily. So you can use this to store some settings of the application such as theme. Let's say you store the theme of the application in your local storage and you close the browser, and next time you pulled up your application, your web application is going to read the theme settings from the local storage as opposed to making server call. So rendering would be faster as it is not dependent on the server calls. Let me give you the demo of how it looks in this application, and then we are going to jump into the implementation part of this application. So in this application we are going to add, update and delete the programming language that will give you an idea how to add, update and delete an entry from a local storage. Well, let me first add first programming language. Let's say C++. I guess it was designed in 1979. I'm gonna go ahead and save it, and there you go. First entry with the key C++ has been added. Let's go ahead and add another programming language, say C sharp, and it has been designed in 2000. So there you go. Second entry has been added. Now, in order to delete the entry, all it needs is the key, right? Because it's going to delete the entry by key. So C sharp, I'm going to delete the C sharp. So I'm going to click on delete. And there you go, entry has been deleted. Now, if you want to load the data from local storage, you have to give a key. So again, I'm giving the key as a C++. I'm going to click on load, and there you go. The data has been loaded directly from the local browser. Oh, sorry, local storage. All right, let's jump into the implementation part of this. All right, so I have created a dummy application in Blazor, and it has nothing right now, just an empty DOM. And we are not going to focus on how DOM looks like. Our focus is to cover local storage mechanism. But let me give you an idea of what are the fields in the form. So we have three input fields. One is for name, another is for creator, and the last one is for year. And the three buttons. First button is for saving, second one is for deleting, and third one is for loading the language. And the UI, there you go, the UI is going to look like this when you run the application with this empty HTML. So first thing first, we need a model to store these three fields. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a folder here. Let's call it local storage, right? Now inside this folder, all of the classes which are related to local storage are gonna go here. I'm gonna add a class and let's call it programming language. There you go. So I believe we need three fields, right? So first one is string. This is the name of the application, so that should it. Second one is the creator, and the third one is to store the year. Let's store year in the field of in the form of integer. My caps lock is on side. There you go. Now we need to map this to UI. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a property here on the top with programming language. Let's call the object a language. Then for the name, I'm gonna bind this at the rate bind value, and I'm gonna say here language dot name, right? I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna paste it here, and here we're gonna say creator, right? And the last but not least is year. So I'm still getting exception because I haven't imported that namespace. So you say using here and then say local storage, and there you go. Now it must add something here. Oh, my bad. and that's gone. Next is the important part. This is where we are going to create a local storage service. So go ahead and add a new file, call it local storage service. This local storage is gonna service is gonna interact with JS runtime. So for that we're gonna need IJS runtime, import the namespace from Microsoft, and then let's call it JS. Inject inside the constructor, so whenever the object is created we're gonna pass it from the center. Let's call it JS and assign it to a private variable. Yes, there you go. Just to have different names, let me give something different here in order to just make a differentiation. Alright, so we're gonna have three different methods. First is to add a key. So for that, or add a record, we're gonna create a public method because we're going to expose this method outside of the class. We're gonna return task. I'm gonna say add item. We're gonna receive two values, right? The key and the string, the value. Now here we're gonna say await, and then gonna say js dot invoke void async, and then here we're gonna pass the name of the JavaScript method, which is local storage dot add item, and then from here we're gonna pass key and the value. All right, same way we're gonna load the data, which is get the item. We're going to call it get item, that's the name of the method. And since we are going to receive the data, we're going to receive in the form of string. That's how the value is stored, as you can see. And you get the data by key, so you don't need a value here. And in order to get data, we use JavaScript's method get item. I need to return the string, right? So we need to make sure we are returning the string. And since it is returning something, the method which must use is called invoke async, not the invoke void async. Right. Now the last method that we need is to remove the item. So we're gonna say remove. Here we're gonna say remove, and in order to remove the item you don't need a value, you just need remove the item by key. So that's what we're gonna do here. This is still bombing for some reason. I didn't read this, and you need to read in the item, right? So yeah, there you go. So three methods. One is going to call the JavaScript function local storage dot add item, which is going to add item by key and the value you provide. Get item is going to receive the local storage data by key, so you provide a key, and the remove item going to remove the data from the local storage with the key, so you provide a key. That's how your local storage services. We need to incorporate this service into program.cs. We're going to do that later after creating programming language service. So let's go ahead and add another service here. We're going to call it programming language service. Right now, here we're going to inject our local storage service. So, and there you go. All right, so now we're going to expose three methods as we did in the local storage service. We need to call these three methods in order to add, update, and delete this programming language. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's add the first method. We're going to call it public, and I'm going to say void add programming language. Right. So we're going to need a string, the name of the language, and then we're going to need the language itself. So we're going to need the object of programming language. I'm going to say programming language to add, right? And now what we're going to do, we're going to call this method ls start add item, and add item is going to receive a key, which is a name, and the value, which is language to add. Now the difference here is we only store string values inside your local storage. So that means we need to serialize this and then pass it down to local storage. For that, you're gonna need JSON serializer, and we can import that from system.text.json, and we're just gonna serialize. We're gonna pass this object right here. Now store that into string. We are gonna call it serialize object, and then we're going to pass this serialized string. Just make the method async because you're awaiting for data to be stored, right? So what we have done, it we have serialized the language into string, and then we pass that string and the name to our local storage method, right? Now next we're gonna do the same thing in order to remove the programming language. So here I'm gonna say remove the programming language. You don't need second parameter here, just a name, so you don't need to serialize the object as well. You're just going to call it remove the item, and we're going to pass the name. Simple. Now the third one is very important. Third one is going to get the data, right? You're going to say get programming language. We're going to call the get item. Okay, now here you're going to receive the object. So technically we are going to return the task of programming language, because you get the programming language, right? And so here we are going to first receive the object in the form of string, then we need to deserialize it. Now deserialize the object, and then return this. Okay, so this programming language service is going to interact between your UI using this object with your local storage, which is in the end going to interact with your local browser's local storage using JavaScript interop. That's the idea. What you're gonna do, you're gonna open your programming.cs, and you're gonna register this to services that we added. So say builder.services.add scope, and then just give the name of the services. So copy and paste it again, and here just call it programming language service. All right, now the last part is to incorporate all of these changes into your programming language, into your UI. Okay, to use your programming language service, so we need to inject that service. So we're going to say inject programming language service. There you go. Okay, now when you add the application, we're going to call add programming language, and we're going to pass two parameters, right? So we're going to pass name of the application, that would be language.name. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to say this dot name, and then I'm going to say new programming language object, and then okay. So what I'm doing here, I'm reading the value from these three input fields, which is stored in this object called programming language, and I'm passing down this language into this service. Now this service is going to receive that language object, it's going to serialize it, and then it's going to pass it down to add method of the local storage, which is now going to call the JavaScript method and going to save that language. Let's call other methods as well. We're going to delete the language. For that, we're going to say remove programming language, and simply going to pass language.name as parameter. Cannot await the void. Oh, let me see. We are not. We need to return the task here because we need to await. Okay. Now the last one is to load the language. So we are just going to say get programming language with the name, and then as soon as you receive the language, we're going to update this programming language object, and that should do it. Let me build this. Let's run this and see if we have any errors or it executes properly. Oh, we do have errors. Nice. Inspect element, and what is the error? All right, we forgot to set one object to the instance, so let me go ahead and quickly do that. Let me just call it new here itself. All right, build this, run this again, and this time it should work. There you go. So we're gonna call it C plus. Oh, let me open the local browser. to inspect, go to your local storage. See, there's nothing right now, and let's start adding the language. C++ 1979 and save. And I got exception again. The exception says add item was undefined. Oh, it's set item, not the name of the JavaScript method is set item, not add item. My bad. Okay, let's see if this works now. Okay, let's go ahead and give a shot. C++, create a Jane in 1979. Save this and let's go to store. There you go. Entry has been added, and let's try to add C sharp and just 2000 and save. So saving is working. Let's try to delete C sharp. Delete it. Oh, it's working, and let's now try to load C++. All right, there you go. That's how you make a use of local storage into your Blazor application. I'm going to have this code somewhere down in the description. You can go to GitHub library and download that code for free. There are other examples that I've been covering so far, so you can just go ahead and play with it. And thank you so much for joining. I'll see you in next one. Ciao.